Hello everybody, my name's Drew Demon and I am the Devil Stockbroker. This video I'm going to be covering BIOR Therapeutics Incorporated. There's been some recent price action on the charts that got my attention, and a few folks in the trading floor were asking about it. So currently it looks like BIOR is setting up a megaphone pattern. Megaphones are just essentially a broadening wedge. They're more like continuation patterns. And typically what they signal is that there's going to be continued momentum according to its trend, unless it's able to break a specific pattern and break the continuation by bouncing at the bottom of the megaphone in this case. So this would be a bearish megaphone based on the trend that it's currently on. And let me preface all of this analysis by saying that I'm still long in BIOR. I haven't changed my positions at all. I've been selling covered calls and stuff in order to try and make some income with all the shares that I have, but these are so far out of the money that there's really not a whole lot of income to be made, and there's also like not really any risk of me getting assigned on these, so I have no intention of selling my positions. I'm strictly just making income off of institutions or any buyers that want to purchase calls that are that far out of the money. And if at any point that I feel like taking that profit, I just simply buy to close those positions, or if there was some risk that I believe that BIOR is suddenly going to take off, I can also close those positions. So BIOR, currently we have, as I was saying, this megaphone pattern. So we entered into this based on a falling wedge that kind of broke down. We didn't finish by breaking out and above like we normally would on a descending wedge. Instead, we just kind of chopped sideways for a while before we had this little bit of a bull run, this little rally that occurred after there was some expected news coming out for their earnings call, and then as soon as we actually got the earnings announcement, everything dropped out. This is mainly because of disappointment that BIOR still hasn't announced a partner, which is what most investors have been waiting for, including myself, for a long time. Now, BIOR recently had a conference that they attended where they were seeking additional partners, and what they're trying to do is they are trying to build up a base of financial partners as well as partners in the pharmaceuticals industry that can apply their drugs to BIOR's drug delivery system and oral biotherapeutics delivery system. So currently, just based on the technicals, this is what we have in front of us. So since this falling wedge broke down, we have since entered into this megaphone, and you see that we've had these 2 touches at the top and 3 touches on the bottom. So 1, 2, 3 on the bottom and 1, 2 at the top. Typically, what we see with these types of moves is we will get we will either get a breakdown through the bottom of the megaphone where it will continue to the downside. And in BIOR's case, this can happen if they reverse split their stock. So if at any point BIOR does a reverse split in order to regain listing standards with NASDAQ, then that would probably cause them, I'm assuming that they would do something like a 10-for-1 split. This would reduce their float by dividing it by 10, and then it would multiply their equity's value by 10. The total change is net neutral. Investors still end up with the same amount of cash at the end of the day. That's the same value in their stock. It doesn't really change. But reverse splits tend to be seen as bearish because it indicates weakness in the company. Really, what BIOR is just going to have to try to do is just maintain its listing requirements and get through all of this downside. So the deadline is approaching for BIOR to get within compliance within the next, let's actually take a date range on this. So if we start from the day that they fell below $1 and were never able to close above since, we're up to 190 days. NASDAQ allows a a company to regain listing requirements for up to a year. So BIOR has been out of compliance for 180 days specifically, since it's been 10 days consecutively that they were, or 30 days consecutively, excuse me, that they were trading below $1. They received their warning from NASDAQ, and although they did get above $1, they need to be trading above $1 for 10 days consecutively in order to regain NASDAQ listing compliance. So they're halfway through their compliance mandate. They have another 180 days, so half a year. So in the next 6 months, BIOR has a choice to make where they either have to buy back stock in order to lift the price, or they need to reverse split in order to lift the equity past $1. If they do a 10-to-1 reverse split, you would essentially divide the float by 10 and multiply the current market price by 10 as well. So that would make BIOR worth $3.85 based on its current market price right now that you see on my screen. Now, what's the other possibility? This is the bearish scenario. The other possibility is that BIOR needs some additional investors and partners, and they already have a working biotherapeutic system. We know that the companies that have been invested in them for this length of time have not left the company. You have companies like Ethereum Capital Management who, in theory, have been playing both sides of this game, shorting BIOR and pushing their stock price down so that they could acquire them for a cheaper price. This is kind of their modus operandi, where they acquire these novel healthcare companies or pharmaceutical companies, and then they sell the rights to them to some big pharmaceutical giant for a massive profit. And although that can't really be proven, just because there's no actual disclosures in the United States equities market surrounding like short positions, we can't be sure. But that was the prevailing theory for the last year now. In any case, where we're currently at with BIOR is their price is the lowest that it's ever been. We're at all-time lows, which, while it's not encouraging, I don't believe that this company is going bankrupt anytime soon. They still have cash runway for the duration of the next year. This has been true since they raised capital back in October and November of 2021. They gave themselves more than a year of capital based on those dilutive instruments that they issued, selling stock into the market and giving themselves a cash runway out till the end of 2024. So the company is not currently in danger of going bankrupt, and they still have all of their research studies have been well underway for more than a year for their drug delivery system and biotherapeutics delivery system. So between those two facts, that BIOR is financially still stable and still operating, they have cut their expenses, and they have a working device that is revolutionary and can reach the market within the next 6 months once they have proven that the system works, which they've already shown encouraging data that the system does work, and it shows fewer side effects and fewer adverse effects with greater exposure of the drug when delivered to the spot that requires treatment. So BIOR's technology does work. It's very good. What we have to wait for is for a pharmaceuticals company to actually pick them up and say, hey, that looks really nice. We'd like to put our drug in that delivery system and get it FDA approved. That process will take at least 6 months. So that's essentially what we're waiting for BIOR's data and research studies to be fully compiled, handed over to the FDA, get approval to use their delivery system with a new drug such as Humira or tofacitinib. Either of these two drugs are highly prevalent in the use of ulcerative colitis and Crohn's disease. And once actually issued, BIOR's new combined therapeutic system with those two drugs would serve to essentially make them the first comers to a biotherapeutics market that with technology that nobody else in the world has right now. So that's currently what we're looking for. Now for the bull case scenario, if that delivery occurs within the next year, then what we may end up seeing instead of this bearish megaphone pattern is for us to see a bounce here in the near term. And if we did end up seeing a bounce, then I imagine that what it would end up looking like is very similar to this, where the stock bounces very quickly on news of recent changes or FDA approval or something of that nature, comes back down to retests previous support, attempts to retest resistance, retest support again, and break out for a reversal. What usually happens with these megaphones at the bottom of a chart, if the company is able to catalyze a reversal, it forms a diamond reversal. Now, we don't have the diamond yet, but that's essentially the technical pattern that I'm waiting to develop in BIOR. So if you do see a bounce in the near term, it's possible that we may see an extremely violent one that could see it retesting $1. BIOR has been sold off all the way back down to the bottom of its chart with new all-time lows in the course of just 3 months with less than 100 million shares. And BIOR's total float is 166 million shares. The fact is that BIOR has declined 66% on almost no volume. There's almost nobody out there trading their stock. For the stock to trade for a solid 3 months with less than 2/3 of its entire float traded back and forth indicates just such little involvement from institutional investors, and that to me implies that they are waiting for something. If we go over to the volume direction candles, we can see that there's been this plateau going on for a long time. And this plateau is characteristic of accumulation where institutions are trying to acquire large sums of a particular stock in preparation to send it on a move to the upside. And this is based off of the volume in the stock. Since we can see that there's been almost no volume traded since basically December of 2021, we can assume that this accumulation has been happening since then. But why does the price go down? Because algorithms are essentially extremely good at pushing the price down during low volume. Strategically, this is something that market makers, broker dealers, and institutional investors are particularly good at, where they can push the price down in order to acquire more shares at cheaper prices just by simply selling shares into the market. This, when it comes from a market maker especially, this tends to come in the form of naked shorting because nobody is buying. There's nobody interested in buying the stock while it's declining like this. Naked shorting can continuously push the price down to lower lows, and then when they need to cover in order to meet delivery or settlement obligations, they simply buy back at the new lower prices once those due dates come. And this is what I've been talking about with BIOR for the last several months. And I apologize to everybody for being relatively quiet on this. It's just that the thesis really hasn't changed for me. The company hasn't had any new hardships, but neither have they had any particularly good news. And that's why, for me, nothing's really changed. I'm still long in BIOR, and for me, it's a 5-year hold, so I'm being patient about it. And I understand that that's very different from other people's strategies, and a lot of folks that invested in this one following me calling it out over a year ago were expecting something much more spectacular for it to go up to like $10, $20, $30 or whatever, throw out an arbitrary price target that people expected it to go to. The fact is that we're just in a bear market, and this is one of those stocks where you just have to weather the storm, wait it out, and eventually, once conditions improve for the global economy overall, and pharmaceutical company picks up BIOR and realizes that they can create something that nobody else has, the price will take care of itself. So in the meanwhile, I treat BIOR kind of like an up-and-coming Dexcom. And if you have never seen Dexcom's chart, I encourage you to take a look at this company, which was the first to create a novel system for reading glucose in diabetics. going all the way back to when they were just a penny stock, all the way back down in 2005 when they first started. It took them more than 10 years for them to finally get going. BIOR has been around for 8 years. The company has been around for much longer than we realize. Even if they haven't been trading on the open market for that long, they have been creating this system for a very, very long time. And Dexcom was at one time a penny stock that everybody was so sure was going to collapse and that it was inevitably going to die. Until finally, they created the first ever transdermal glucose monitor, which was able to read somebody's glucose levels through a transdermal needle attached to their stomach. And that allowed diabetics to read their glucose on a whim and monitor it continuously. And I have my own qualms with Dexcom's products, but that's an aside from the fact that Dexcom, once they actually found investors and they went to market, their stock price went from $4 to $14, $18, $20 within 2 years. And beyond that, from 2018 till 2022, Dexcom went from $20 all the way to $150 at the peak of this bull market that we just had, ending in October of 2021. This is the kind of company that BIOR can be once the technology catches on and people realize the utility and the power of it. But that's just going to take time. These things don't happen overnight. And this is why I've emphasized patience and said over and over again that patience is key. I hope that everybody finds that this information is a little bit more encouraging and encourages you to hold through the painful times in this. This is not a stock to day trade. It's never been a stock to day trade. This was always a long-term investment that you had to have utmost confidence in. If this is not something that you have the utmost confidence in, that you're willing to hold it for 5 years, then it's probably not the stock for you. But that was my thesis from the very beginning. That's why I'm still here, and that's why I will continue to hold until I see returns on my investment. Thank you guys so much. Thank you guys so much for tuning in to watch this video. If you enjoyed the content and you found this information helpful to you in your own trading strategies, be sure to leave a like on the video. It helps out the YouTube algorithm and helps us reach out to others who need this information too. Be sure to subscribe if you want to see more. And if you're not a member of Hell's Trading Floor already, consider joining our Discord by joining us at hellstradingfloor.com, which will allow you to sign up for our Discord at discord.gg/hellstradingfloor. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Until then, have a hell of a time in the markets.